How would you put food on the table if you lost your job? Everyone in the nation knew your face, and your reputation was ruined beyond repair. After an alcohol-fueled, off-duty beating of an African-American man who happens to be the son of a Supreme Court judge, the two cops are terminated from the force and must survive in a society that they are blacklisted from by entering the world of crime. Chapter 1. A Night to Remember. The Firkin local pub was alive with a familiar, boisterous energy, its warm amber lighting casting shadows over polished wood floors and walls adorned with vintage Guinness advertisements. The scent of spilled beer mingled with the aroma of fried pub fare, creating a comforting, lived-in smell that welcomed its patrons. A Celtic melody played from a small band in the corner, the fiddle's high notes weaving through the hum of conversation and laughter. At the heart of the commotion was a table draped with a lopsided banner that read, "Happy 30th, Sammy." The off-duty officers gathered there had already ordered several rounds, their laughter growing louder as the night wore on. Sammy, a wiry white man with sandy brown hair and a perpetual smirk, was at the center of it all, reveling in the attention. Behind the bar, Kendra, the bar manager, leaned against the counter with a practiced nonchalance. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail, from the waitress gracefully balancing a tray of shots to the old man nursing a pint at the end of the bar. Kendra, a black woman in her late 30s, had a striking presence. Her braided hair pulled into a high bun and her lips painted in a bold crimson shade. She was as much a fixture of the pub as its well-worn bar stools. The waitress, a young woman with radiant dark skin and a confident stride, wove through the crowd with ease, her presence commanding admiration from more than a few patrons. Her hair, a halo of natural curls, caught the dim light, giving her an almost ethereal glow. She flashed a practiced smile as she delivered drinks, her movements fluid and precise. "Old man, they sure know how to have a good time, don't they?" Kendra: "They'll be all right." Old man: "Why's that?" Kendra: "They're the cops." The man's eyes widened slightly before he turned back to his drink, muttering, "Old man, oh." Just then, the door swung open, letting in a gust of cool night air. Ethan Brooks stepped inside, his tall frame and confident stride turning a few heads. His light brown hair was neatly combed, and his sharp blue eyes scanned the room with the focus of someone used to assessing his surroundings. Dressed in a dark leather jacket over a fitted shirt and jeans, he exuded a relaxed confidence that bordered on cockiness. His gaze landed on Cynthia, and a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Cynthia stood casually at the bar, her deep brown skin glowing under the amber lights. Her dark, almond-shaped eyes met his, a spark of recognition passing between them. She was dressed simply but stylishly in a fitted top and jeans that highlighted her athletic build. Her black shoulder-length hair framed her face, and her posture radiated self-assuredness. Ethan made his way toward her, weaving through the throng with ease. Ethan claps a hand on the birthday boy's shoulder. Ethan: "Happy birthday, Sammy!" Sammy responds with a grateful smile. Sammy: "Thanks, man. Where's your partner?" Ethan smirked, the corners of his mouth curling upward in that familiar, roguish way. Ethan: "In prison." A beat of confusion passed before Ethan added, "Ethan, sorry, I mean at home with his wife." The table erupted in laughter, the tension breaking as Ethan's charm worked its magic. He turned to Cynthia, his smile softening. "Ethan, ladies, how's the night treating you?" Cynthia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the small laugh that escaped her. She gave Ethan a playful punch on the shoulder before pulling him into a brief hug. Cynthia: "Better now that you're here to entertain us." Beside her, Jolie, Cynthia's best friend and roommate, raised an eyebrow. Jolie's bronze complexion and striking features turned heads wherever she went, and her jet-black hair was styled in loose waves that framed her face. Her dark eyes sparkled with mischief as she regarded Ethan. Jolie: "Hello, Ethan. Didn't expect to see you here." Her tone was cool, but the subtle curve of her lips hinted at a shared history she wasn't ready to bring into the spotlight. Ethan hesitated, the momentary flicker of unease in his eyes betraying his otherwise easy demeanor. Ethan: "Hello, Jolie. It's been a while." Jolie leaned back, her smile growing sly. Jolie: "It has. How are you holding up?" Ethan gave a short laugh, motioning for the waitress to bring over a tray. Ethan: better with some shots in my system. As the night wore on, the energy in the pub grew even more frenetic. Ethan found himself pulled into a dance with two waitresses, their laughter ringing out as they spun around him. Across the room, Cynthia watched, her jaw tightening with a flicker of annoyance. She threw back another shot and turned to Sammy and Jolie. "Cynthia, let's dance." Her tone left no room for argument. On the dance floor, Cynthia's movements were sharp and deliberate, her frustration bleeding into every step. She leaned toward Jolie, her voice low. "Cynthia, look at him, making a damn fool of himself." Jolie smirked, her gaze following Ethan. "Jolie, an ass you're probably going home with tonight." Cynthia shot her friend a sharp look, but Jolie only laughed, her voice light and teasing. "Jolie, girl, don't trip. He's not even going to remember tonight." Cynthia turned back to the dance floor, her jaw tightening as she resolved to forget her irritation in the sway of the music. Chapter 2. Lines Crossed. Ethan's apartment was dimly lit, the golden glow of a solitary lamp casting long shadows across the small living room. The walls were sparsely decorated, save for a few framed photos of his academy days and a battered bookshelf laden with true crime novels and case files. The hum of the city beyond his window was a constant, muted backdrop, blending with the faint creak of his old couch as he slouched into its worn cushions. Ethan himself cut an imposing figure even in this moment of solitude. His light brown hair was slightly disheveled, and the deep lines of exhaustion under his sharp blue eyes hinted at the long hours and weighty decisions that defined his job. He tugged at his loosened tie, undoing the last button of his dress shirt to reveal the faint outline of a tattoo on his collarbone. A relic from his military days, a chapter of his life that few people knew in detail. He downed a glass of water, the cool liquid doing little to erase the effects of the night's excesses. He was reaching for the remote when a loud, insistent knock shattered the quiet. Ethan frowned, his brow furrowing as he stood. Visitors were rare this late. As he opened the door, the sight of Cynthia took him aback. Cynthia stood there, her presence filling the doorway like a storm about to break. Her deep brown skin seemed to shimmer under the dim hallway light, her flushed cheeks betraying the emotions simmering just beneath the surface. Her dark, almond-shaped eyes were blazing with intensity, framed by her loose, shoulder-length curls that had begun to frizz slightly from the night's humidity. She was Afro-Latina, and her mixed heritage was apparent in her sharp, high cheekbones and the soft fullness of her lips, now pressed into a tense line. "Sin," Ethan started, but before he could finish, she stepped inside, pushing the door shut behind her with a definitive click. She moved closer, and the faint scent of her perfume, a blend of jasmine and something spicy, filled the air between them. "What?" Ethan tried again, but Cynthia didn't let him finish. Her hands grabbed his shirt, pulling him toward her with a force that left no room for hesitation. Their lips collided in a fiery kiss that carried all the frustration, anger, and unresolved tension between them. "Did you really have to act like that tonight?" she hissed between kisses, her voice low and charged. The sharpness of her words contrasted with the heat of her actions, creating a whirlwind that Ethan found both disarming and irresistible. Ethan managed a breathless, "What?" before her lips silenced him again, her fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss was urgent, almost desperate as they stumbled toward the couch, shedding jackets and inhibitions along the way. Cynthia's nails grazed against the faint stubble on his jaw, her touch as electrifying as her presence. The room seemed to shrink around them, the hum of the city outside fading into the background as the tension between them reached its breaking point. When they finally collapsed onto the couch, tangled in each other's arms, the air was thick with the unspoken weight of what had just transpired. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Cynthia lay with her head resting on Ethan's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Then, without lifting her head, she broke the silence. "Are you going to apologize?" she asked, her voice quieter now but still tinged with the teasing edge she often used to disarm him. Ethan turned his head to look at her, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "For what?" Her response was a mischievous smile as her hand darted toward his side, finding a ticklish spot that made him yelp in surprise. Her laugh, warm and genuine, filled the room, momentarily dispelling the tension. But as the laughter faded, so did the lightness. They lay in silence, the weight of their shared history and the complexity of their relationship pressing down on them. Ethan's gaze drifted to the ceiling, his thoughts swirling with questions he didn't dare voice. Cynthia, meanwhile, closed her eyes, willing herself to forget the vulnerability she had just shown. The night stretched on, the quiet punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional creak of the old couch beneath them. Neither of them wanted to move, knowing that once they did, the fragile peace of the moment would shatter. Chapter 3. The morning after. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting soft stripes of light across the rumpled sheets, and the two figures sprawled across Ethan's bed. The alarm clock on the nightstand blared an obnoxious tone, breaking the serene quiet. Groaning. Ethan groaned, his arm fumbling to silence the noise, while Cynthia buried her face deeper into the pillow. Groaning. "What is that, some girl calling you?" Smiling, eyes still closed. "It's an alarm, not a ringtone. We should get up." Cynthia let out a muffled groan but rolled onto her back, blinking at the ceiling. Teasing. "You're wearing my badge." Cynthia rolled her eyes, sitting up and snatching the badge from his hand. "Lucky for you, I'm off duty today. Otherwise, I'd write you up for being a pain in the ass." Ethan chuckled, leaning back against the headboard. "You'd have to catch me first." The playful banter filled the room with a surprising lightness, but underneath it, an unspoken tension lingered. Cynthia's gaze lingered on the sunlight peeking through the blinds. She sighed softly, as though bracing herself for the shift back to reality. As Cynthia began gathering her clothes, Ethan watched her with a mix of admiration and uncertainty. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the distant hum of the city outside. "Ethan, sin last night." She cut him off with a small, wry smile. "Cynthia, don't ruin it, Brooks." Her tone was light, but there was an edge of finality to her words. Ethan nodded, leaning back against the bed frame as she walked toward the bathroom. The sound of the water running filled the air, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He stared at the ceiling, the weight of his unspoken feelings settling heavily on his chest. The morning stretched on, each minute feeling heavier than the last. As Cynthia stepped out of the bathroom, fully dressed and composed, she offered Ethan a brief smile. "Cynthia, see you at the precinct." Ethan watched her leave, the door clicking shut behind her. The room felt colder without her presence, and he let out a long, slow breath, already dreading the unspoken tension that awaited them at work.
To be continued. Thank you for listening to Part 1 of 7 of the audiobook The Other Side of the Law, written by Michael Liverpool. Click like, subscribe, click the notification bell to get all the updates, get in the comment box, and stay tuned for chapters 4 through 6. Take care.